Constructing and analyzing two-way frequency tables, part 2. Example 2. The PE teachers at a high school are organizing an intramural league. They asked ninth grade students which sport they would most like to play. The results are shown in the frequency table below. Create a two-way relative frequency table for the entire table based on the data should the PE teachers create a basketball league. Explain. All right, so we're going to use this frequency table right here in order to create the two-way relative frequency table. So I'm basically going to go about just recreating what's already here. All right, so it's not beautiful, but it's recreated. Hopefully yours looks a little better on your paper. All right, so we're gonna create this relative frequency table for the entire table. That means that with our ratios, each denominator is going to be our total, which is this 200. So what we are doing is we're gonna be dividing each one of these numbers by 200 in order to come up with a percentage. So for boys basketball, that'll be 50 divided by 200, 18 divided by 200, 30 divided by 200, 32 divided by 200, 12 divided by 200, and 58 divided by 200. Okay, and then you're just gonna pick up your calculator. So for example, 50 divided by 200 in the calculator, we get 0.25. Now to turn that into a percentage, you simply multiply that by 100. And you'll see that you have 25%. 18 divided by 200 is 0.09. So we multiply that by 100. That is 9%. 30 divided by 200 is 0.15. Multiply that by 100. That is 15%. And let me just finish up the rest because I think you guys have the idea. Okay, so you can see that I've only done the conditional frequencies, which are in the body of the table. I don't need to do the ratios for the totals because I can find the totals by simply adding up what I have here. So to find the total for basketball, I'll just do 25 plus 9, and I get 34%. For kickball, 15 plus 16, that's 31%. And for volleyball, 6 plus 29, and that's 35%. Now let's look the other way. For the boys total, 25 plus 15 plus 6 is 46%. And then for the girls, 9 plus 16 plus 29 is 54%. So when we add each of these together, no matter what way, we should get 100% because 200 divided by 200 is just 1, which is 100%. So 46 plus 54 is 100%. And let's just check the other way. 34 plus 31 plus 35, that is also 100%. So we know that we've done our calculations correctly. Now, based on this data, should the PE teachers create a basketball league? Explain. So looking at this data, deciding whether we should create a basketball league, I'm going to be looking right here at my totals, okay? So looking at basketball, I see 34% voted for basketball, 31% voted for kickball, and 35% voted for volleyball. So based off of this information, I'm going to say no, we should not create a basketball league. Explain. So volleyball received 35% of the votes, and basketball only received 34% of the votes. And that's why, because volleyball had more votes than basketball. So if they're going to create any intramural league, it should probably be volleyball. Example 3. Carter surveyed 20 ninth grade students and 30 12th grade students at random. He asked the students whether they were involved in school clubs. After creating a two-way frequency table of his results, he calculated the relative frequencies for each row in his table. Create a frequency table for Carter's data, then create a two-way relative frequency table for the columns in the frequency table. Okay, so for this one, it's going to require us to work backwards to create a frequency table. So let me go ahead and just make my table really quickly. 9, 12 total. Then one or more. I'm kind of abbreviating here, so I don't have to write all of that. No clubs. And then our total. Okay, again, I hope yours looks a lot better than mine because this is ugly. Okay, so what we're given, this is a relative frequency table by row. That means that the denominator for each fraction was whatever the total was for each row. Okay, now we're going to have to work backwards and come up with a plain old regular frequency table. So I'm going to go back to my information. I see that he surveyed 90 ninth grade students and 30 12th grade students. That information is important. So how many ninth grade students did we have? We had 20. How many 12th grade students did we have? 30. And that's just the information that we were given in the problem. So 30 plus 20, that means there were 50 total. Now we're going to have to figure out the numbers within here based off of these percentages. So basically we see that 30% of ninth graders are in one or more clubs. So we have to pretty much figure out what is 30% of 20. And the way to do that is to turn that 30% into a decimal, which is 0.30. And then multiply that by 20. And we'll do the same thing for the no club. So that'll be 0.70 times 20. And again, this is how you figure out that percentage of that 20. So 0.30 times 20 equals 6. That means there were 6 ninth graders. And then 0.70 times 20, 14 ninth graders. All right, let's do the 12th graders. So we got 80% times 30, and then we have 20% times 30. So 80% of 30 is 24, and 20% of 30 is 6. So now to get these totals, we're simply going to add 6 plus 24 equals 30, and 14 plus 6 is 20. And again, 30 plus 20 does give us 50. Okay, now we have our plain old frequency table. And now next they're asking us to create a two-way relative frequency table for the columns. So again, this is going by row. We see that each of our row totals are 100%. Now we're going to look at columns, and each of the column totals should be 100%. So again, I'm going to duplicate my table. 9th, 12th total. one or more clubs, no clubs, and total. All right, so we're going to use this information here. So we're going to do all of our column totals are going to be the 100%. So basically, we're going to do 6 divided by 30, because that's our total for one or more, and 24 divided by 30. And then 30 divided by 30, which we know is just going to be 100%. So 6 divided by 30 gives us 0.2. Multiply that by 100, that is 20%. 24 divided by 30 is 0.8, which is 80%. Now let's look at the no clubs. So that'll be 14 divided by 20, 6 divided by 20, and 20 divided by 20, which we know is 100%. So 14 divided by 20 is 70. And then 6 divided by 20 is 30%. And then lastly, we have our totals. So 20 divided by 50, 30 divided by 50, and 50 divided by 50, which is 100%. So 20 divided by 50 is 40%. And then 30 divided by 50 is 60%. So again, when you're doing a relative frequency table by row, you divide by each row total. When you're doing a relative frequency table by column, you divide by every column total. And then if you're doing a relative frequency table for the entire table, you divide everything by this number here, which is the total.